The Academy of Galactic Histories was perched atop the cliffs of Viridian 3, a planet shrouded in turquoise mist and jagged rock spires. Its students were among the brightest in the galaxy, trained in everything from interstellar diplomacy to xenobiology, but today's lesson was unlike any other: the identification and study of legendary figures from pre-spacefaring civilizations. Lyra Venn, a cadet with a reputation for wit and unconventional thinking, sat cross-legged on the observation deck, flicking through holographic archives. Her assignment: identify the ancient warlord whose strategies shaped the unification of the Kylorian sectors. Professor Malric, a grizzled veteran of archival warfare, paced before the class. Many have attempted this lesson, only to misinterpret artifacts or misread the sparse records. Accuracy is essential. One mistake, and the historical record becomes corrupted for generations. Lyra's eyes twinkled. She loved challenges that required more than rote memorization. Her mind thrived on deduction, empathy, and connecting dots others ignored. She had studied the Kylorian campaigns, the murals, and the remnants of old battle drones. Yet something about this lesson called for intuition, not just knowledge. The classroom door slid open, revealing a holographic projection of the Warlord himself, or what remained of him in visual records. The figure was imposing, tall, armored, with a strategic gaze that seemed to pierce centuries. His identity, however, was masked by legend and myth. Many cadets froze, intimidated by the task. Lyra leaned forward. "We're not just identifying a figure," she murmured to herself. "We're reading the patterns behind the legend." Hours passed. Cadets cross-referenced records, ran simulations, and debated lineage. Most were stuck, trapped in historical assumptions. Lyra, however, noticed subtle details others dismissed: the design of ceremonial armor, the curvature of battle formations, the recurring symbol in Kylorian insignia, a small crest that appeared both in the Warlord's era and in the archives of her own family. She leaned back, a grin forming. "You're showing my grandfather," she whispered. The professor, who had been observing silently, raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" Lyra explained. The evidence suggested that the ancient warlord had survived longer than recorded, embedding teachings, tactics, and legacies across generations. The crest she recognized, passed down in her family, was the same as those seen in murals and battle schematics attributed to the warlord. Her grandfather, a retired general with countless unrecorded missions, had subtly taught her the same strategic patterns, embedding them in games, exercises, and family traditions. Malric studied her reasoning, impressed. "A bold hypothesis," he said. "But can you prove it?" Lyra smiled wider. She activated her personal interface, pulling up simulations of Kylorian battles. She overlaid known maneuvers with her grandfather's teachings. The correlation was uncanny. The same formations, the same anticipatory movements, the same tactical traps. Historical records, previously misattributed, aligned perfectly with her grandfather's strategies. Other cadets watched, astonished. They had searched archives, debated theories, and run analyses, but none had seen the connection to living descendants. Lyra, however, had bridged centuries, linking myth to reality. "Class dismissed," Malric said finally, his voice tinged with admiration. Cadet Ben has demonstrated not only mastery of historical analysis, but the rare ability to perceive continuity across generations. This lesson is yours. Lyra's mind, still buzzing with discovery, sought further understanding. She visited her grandfather later that evening, a man who had trained her in strategy through casual games and exercises. "I think I understand now," she said, placing the holographic record beside him. "You taught me your grandfather's warlord tactics without telling me." He chuckled, his eyes crinkling. I merely hoped you'd notice the patterns. Some lessons aren't meant to be explicit. They're meant to be lived, experienced. The revelation shifted Lyra's perspective on history. She realized that knowledge was not only preserved in archives and data crystals, but in living memory, in the subtle passing of strategies, values, and wisdom. The past and present intertwined, and sometimes, the greatest teacher walked beside you in plain sight. In the weeks that followed, Lyra presented her findings to the Academy Council. They were initially skeptical, but simulations validated her deductions. Her grandfather's lineage and influence were officially recognized, reshaping historical understanding of the Kylorian sectors. Lyra became a celebrated cadet, known not just for intelligence, but for vision. She continued to study ancient civilizations, tracing patterns across galaxies, uncovering connections others dismissed as coincidence. And in every lesson, she remembered the smile she had given the holographic Warlord, the recognition that the past was not lost, merely waiting to be understood through the present. Years later, as a historian of interstellar renown, Lyra trained her own students. She told them, "History is more than dates and battles. It lives in those who teach, in those who observe, in those who connect the unseen threads. Look beyond the archives. Look to those who carry the legacy quietly, waiting for you to recognize them." And sometimes, when reviewing records of ancient strategies, she couldn't help but grin again. "You're showing my grandfather," she'd whisper, marveling at the timeless dance of wisdom, memory, and inheritance. The galaxy remembered that lesson. Ancient warlords were not merely figures of legend. They lived on in those who carried their insight across generations, sometimes in the most unexpected forms.